Hello, everyone, and welcome to the October 2021 edition of the Insights Interview. Now, I first met my VIP guest when pitching prepaid gift card services to retail decisions to the head of marketing there years and years ago. Since then, he set up and sold a company to WEX, one of the most successful prepaid companies in Europe called CorporatePay, and set up and grown another innovative business called Modulr. He studied at Oxford, became a graduate trainee at M&S, and was a founding member of the EPA's advisory board. He's also a true community player with a big heart and a fiercely loyal champion of Scottish Fintech. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Modulr, Myles Stephenson.
Hi there, Tony. Thank you very much for the fantastic introduction. Very generous, thank you.
No, it's great to have you here, and thank you for being happy to share your insights with the community, Myles. So, look, at the start of every Insights interview, I like to ask my my VIP guests how they stay motivated. You know, what makes them go the extra mile when faced with challenging jobs that involve considerable stress, especially when they've achieved a great deal already. So, you've already built a payments firm and sold it, and then you turn around and decided, let's do it again. So what is it that continues to motivate you, Myles, 17 years after entering payments?
Yeah, really good question. Maybe I should be asking myself that every day, Tony. But on a serious note, I think there are really sort of two big themes for me. One is the first one is making a difference. So if you look at not only what we, the team have managed to do here at Modulr and previously at CorporatePay, and previously going back to when you and I first met in terms of pushing the boundaries and making change. There's just so much opportunity to make change that impacts not just the payments industry, but the markets we work in, and then the people who use the services within those markets. And that, I think, has just been an amazing journey, an amazing opportunity. And I feel really sort of lucky that I've had the opportunity to do that. And I'm a big believer, which I'm sure we'll go on to talk about in some of the other areas, that having, and it sounds a bit dull at times, but I don't think it is. And having a really efficient and open payment system is just good for the economy. And that's what I get super excited about in my own way, being a sort of a bit of a payments geek, is how the government, the regulators, and everyone in the UK, I think, see that as well. And that's why all the changes happen. So that core of being able to be part of all of this change, the excitement that we can through the payments, we can make a difference to how businesses operate, people's lives, through just being able to move money around more efficiently. And the second one is just the phenomenal learning opportunity that exists within payments. And that, for me, is in two broad areas as well. There's the payments industry itself. As you say, I've been in the industry for a long time, but there isn't still a day that goes by where I don't learn something new. Because there's a new part of it. It's so vast, it's so big, and you just continue to find out new things that you didn't know before. So just the opportunity to learn is immense. But not only in the payments industry, because payments are the core of every business, we just get the opportunity to interact with so many different industry verticals, industry sectors. So the opportunity to learn about whether it's core retail, which was part of my background anyway, and e-commerce and the change and evolvement of e-commerce over those years, whether it's the travel industry, whether it's all the changes that have been happening in the fintech market itself, even as we start to touch markets like property, just the opportunity and the intrigue about how all these markets work. I just find it that sort of fusion of the payments industry with these markets is just an incredible opportunity, and I guess I've got that sort of inquisitive mind that just likes to understand it, and so I think that's those two things together really keep me going.
Yeah, very good. And this issue of curiosity, I suppose, is behind my next question, which is in light of what you just said, is a bit of a silly one, which is how has the industry changed since we first started out? But are there one or two things you can highlight, specific changes from the days of us being the plumbers to us being the people who are sexy front of house innovators?
Yeah, I mean, well, you start on a really good point there, that if you wind back to when we were first in payments, if we're being really honest and frank, people would have perhaps looked at us and thought, oh gosh, what's that? Why are you building a career in payments because it wasn't seen as perhaps the most high-profile part of financial services. You wind forward to today, and things have changed dramatically. So there's definitely that part of it, and I just also the sheer scale and size of the market and the participants and that openness. So if I wind back to when we started getting into payments, you could quite easily probably list the people involved or the competitors maybe on a slide, and you could show the market context. Try and do that today. You just can't, which is good. But by the way, it's because there's that openness and the way the market has opened up to enable more competition, enable more innovation, just means there's so much more going on. And that for me has been the phenomenal change, that when we started, the market was pretty closed and in some ways inaccessible, compared to today with all of the changes from government, from regulators, from the European Commission, from a European perspective. It's just amazing how it's transformed in a reasonable time frame.
Yes, and that changing backdrop has enabled entrepreneurs and people who are good at spotting opportunities like you with a chance to do something great. And you've built and sold, you've built and are innovating every day. What are the things that you would say represent your secrets for success? And it's a bit of a you're such a modest person. You probably don't think you've got anything that's a secret. But if you did, what are the sort of two or three things that are behind the success of the businesses you've set up and are running?
I think if you look back, the learnings, perhaps as I might put it, in terms of what's managed to understand, learn, and gather through that journey. The first big one for me is if you like, being on the pitch. So actually getting involved, and sometimes you see people thinking about markets, thinking what to do, but hanging back and hesitating. And what I found, and working with some great entrepreneurs like the people at Blenheim Chalcott here in London, the idea of just being on the pitch, having a go, finding out, exploring, is really key, because until you do that, you've got no idea what's really going on. And you're not starting to position yourself, your business, to take advantage of the opportunities that come along. So you have to, at some point, I'm not saying you dive in day one with no idea, but with some hypothesis, with some view, with some thoughts, you have to get going at some point. And it might not be in the right direction. It could be the wrong direction, but understanding that quickly, learning that, and changing direction or pivoting is absolutely critical. And I think that leads on to then being in the market, understanding it, starting to learn. That then leads to a second big factor. Timing's everything, and being able to be there at the right time. And if you look back at our previous businesses or previous business, CorporatePay, there are some bits there that worked really well from a timing point of view. And there were some bits where there was some big learnings where we were, if you look at broadly the two things we were doing, corporate expense cards was the start of the business, and then virtual cards for supplier payments were the second part, and where the business ended up. That first part, if we're being really honest, we got some good traction, but we were a bit early for the market in 2008, 2009. Wind forward to now and look at the change and innovation and adoption that's happening in that market, with many providers in the UK and many providers in the UK, US, and further afield. So timing is important versus where we pivoted into in terms of virtual cards. The transition that was happening in not just the payments industry, but the particular market that we focused on in travel, was going through a massive amount of transformation, and therefore was just open to what we were doing. So that timing and therefore a bit of luck in terms of that timing is really, really important, but enabled by, you can create that by being in the market and thinking and exploring. So
be on the pitch, get the timing right.
Absolutely. I think those are the two things that I've learned or experienced directly.
Absolutely. So look, let's move on to talk a little bit about some of the things you talk about being on the pitch and doing stuff. We were on the pitch trying to affect some change when we were looking at who could open settlement accounts at the Bank of England, and we said to ourselves, well, let's make this a cause, a collective cause. Can you share a little bit about what happened and why it was important that we did what we did?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes me back. I wouldn't even be able to perhaps put the timing on it exactly, but I'm sure you could. And it's been for me, it was the real importance of an industry coming together as well, because it was something that none of us, I believe, could have achieved individually. And when I say those, I mean companies as well, not just the individual people, but the individual companies. It required a collective effort across the industry, and that need to change the market, change thinking around how businesses accessed payments and who could enable that was absolutely critical. And the EPA bringing that together and being able to coordinate the industry and give a focal point for people that wanted to make that change was really the enabler to move forward the discussions with also the Treasury, who were receptive to it, and also the Bank of England, and also the FCA, and also the payment schemes at the time. Bringing all of that together collectively was really critical, and couldn't have happened by just one company, one person saying we want to do this. It would have been, I think, impossible. And hopefully, where it ended up demonstrates that.
I think that's right. I think the market's better as a result. Funny enough, the Bank of England was just sharing with me this morning that they felt that sort of collective action was really an important component of affecting the change. And in fact, they were welcoming it and looking at it for the next phase. We'll come on to it in a moment. So look, let's talk a little bit about these institutions, such as the Bank of England and for example, the payment systems regulator. Some of us are a bit concerned about the nature of payment systems in the UK. Are they fit for purpose? And if not, how should they be changing? How well do you think these institutions are doing? And what else should they be doing that they're not?
For me again, it's one of those looking at either the moment in time or standing back and looking at the progress. So you can always, I think, get either sort of frustrated around things you're trying to do at a point in time, and there's always going to be challenges. I think the important bit when we're looking at this type of change and this type of progress is to stand back and think about the journey that we've been on and continue to be on. And so I think if you take that perspective, then the success has been immense, and I do believe the UK has and continues to be at the forefront there, which is fantastic, being based here. And I do hope that there are similar changes that are appropriate for other countries and regions that go in a similar way. I think what's also important, though, is as I said, it's a journey, and what I believe we've got to be really conscious of and focused on is the journey hasn't stopped and shouldn't stop, and that's really important, that we continue to push the boundaries, we continue to move forward. And what we don't want it to be is, if you like, a pendulum where it sort of swings forward and we make progress, and then there's factors that push and swing it back, which is always going to be the case with new innovative ways of doing things. There's always going to be challenges and issues. And I do hope that we continue to push forward and push the pendulum in the same direction and work, even if it slows down. Realistically, sometimes it might slow down a bit, but slowing down as we work through the issues rather than it swinging back as we work through the changes or the unknowns that come out through the change. So I think that momentum forward is something that I really hope continues. And I'm sure, as you said, some of the things we might want to talk about are great evidence of where it is. But I think also on the change that was started around the direct access for non-bank financial institutions, the start point of it has been great. But again, we're only at the start, and there's a lot more change that needs to happen that is tied to some really fundamental changes around central systems infrastructure at the bank and at the payment networks, and it's all happening. We just need to make sure it continues to happen at a pace that's appropriate for not just the growth of the payments industry, but as we've mentioned, what it really underpins is the growth and scaling of and competitiveness of the UK economy as well.
I agree in terms of keeping momentum going. Rather than this being a pendulum, we're on a train. The good news is the institutions, I believe, behind the scenes are developing new systems about RTGS, and as we see a decentralized finance coming into play, and we see open banking, and then we see changing standards, ISO 20022. There's a lot of these things that I think will prepare us for a really progressive future. Do you think that the UK can benefit from showing and positively demonstrating its leadership in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's absolutely critical, and there are great opportunities, and it's already you've done that across multiple examples, and I think it drives so many different types of benefits. So there's whether it's just how the UK payment systems work and the economy, the competitiveness, and how therefore businesses in the UK can be more efficient and therefore more competitive themselves, in whether it's competing in the market here or through international trade, which is clearly very important, but also for inward investments, for businesses coming here to see it to be the place of innovation and wanting to build and start businesses here. That clearly has been a great success of the UK and UK Fintech. So for those two very big reasons, I think it's really important that we continue to sort of push and be at the forefront of changes such as those that you mentioned.
Very good, and I completely agree with that. I have a sense that we're on the edge of a new era for I call it the Roaring '20s. Let's see whether this is going to be fulfilled or not. I think part of what we're doing as a community is trying to come up with new initiatives, and one of the things that Modulr has just got involved with is something we grandly talk about, which is a new era for GBP. And it's to do with the Bank of England's new settlement accounts. You guys have joined the syndicate. Can you explain why and explain what you hope to get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we see it very much as that continuing that journey. So as you know, we're one of the few non-bank financial institutions that have taken advantage and the opportunity to apply and get direct access to the Bank of England to be settling participants in faster payments and backs. And we see this new era, this new opportunity opening up as continuing that to be able to access more services and work more closely with the Bank of England, which I think could present two opportunities. One is I mentioned around the journey of the existing direct access. There are still some gaps that need to be plugged, and some of the things that you mentioned around the RTGS developments and also the core Pay.UK infrastructure as well. But there are also other challenges around banking access that are not directly linked, but around whether it's institutions like us or it's some of our clients or and also competitors being able to get access to a broader set of payment banking services and bank accounts. And I see there's a potential opportunity, and you obviously need to work through the details, a potential opportunity for the type of activity and the type of change that the Bank of England is now proposing, that it could lead to some innovation, some change and ways of solving those access. And so I think of that as helping fill out or complete the jigsaw puzzle on that journey that we started in the first area. So I think that's super exciting, because again, it's about how we all can influence change positively, and because we could also just get frustrated around the way it is and the way it's been, but it is the way it is for all sorts of reasons. But this could be another enabler, which is exciting to help fill out that jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Yes, no, I agree.
Yeah. And then the second part, as you mentioned it, which I guess more it is more linked to the sort of positioning of it in terms of a new era for GBP, just creating more opportunity to think about the types of services and the types of capability, and creating a platform for innovation, which again is really exciting, and being able to, again, seeing it as a continuous journey rather than having to sort of jump forward, is fantastic. So super hopeful that it will move at pace, although the pace might be relative to the various participants involved. But it'd be great if we can move it at pace, and I'm sure the community at the EPA will be pushing hard to make that happen.
We're a community in a hurry, always keen to get stuff done soon. So
Indeed.
yes, rely on us. And in fact, we will be publishing the white paper in January. We've even got a date, 22nd of January. And when you've got a date, you know things are going to happen. So let's talk about something else, which is, I think, really, really important. It's to do with whether it's the UK that's a fintech centre and the paytech sector, or whether it's London. I know. Traditionally payments has been London-centric, but it's no longer the case. Can you explain what's been happening and also what you're setting out to achieve for Scottish Fintech, Myles?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been big believers from the start of launching Modulr or founding Modulr, is that there's lots, both opportunity and skills and talent beyond London, and London is important in terms of the UK's position on the sort of world fintech stage, and its integration and the capability and the size that London brings. But there's so much more beyond London as well, which has been really important to us. And we've built a large part of our business in Edinburgh. And in fact, a larger proportion of our 280 odd people now are based in Edinburgh or the surrounding region in Scotland. And we found that to be a great place to be for a whole set of reasons. Originally, it was for software development and engineering, but as we then got more integrated into the network, the community there's just such a great depth of talent across financial services and across the disciplines, as you'd expect. I mean, with hindsight, it's an obvious statement to be making, but whether it's payment operations for us, risk and compliance, servicing, the talent pool is fantastic. With Edinburgh and broader locations in Scotland as well, having been strong financial centres for many years, and the focus that organisations such as Fintech Scotland and Scottish Enterprise and Scottish Development International have brought to that have been super helpful in pushing it up the agenda and making sure people do see and believe, as we do, that there are opportunities and capabilities beyond London. So I think it's for us, as hopefully shows out in what we've done with Modulr, it's not a either or. It's not a we have to be in London or Edinburgh or London or elsewhere. It's both. They have different advantages, different capabilities, and being in both is really important, and we'll continue to do that.
And of course, in a funny way, even more now that we can work from anywhere. So we should be able to, capitalize on where people's, where people personally want to live, rather than the fact that they have to live in Surrey or something silly. But no, it's great. And of course, your family comes from Edinburgh as well. So
yes, so very, very convenient personally for myself as well.
Well, there you go. I like a bit of alignment of enlightened self-interest. That's good, but I philosophically I agree with you entirely.
Yeah, definitely. And the same, whilst I don't have any personal direct experience, the same logic applies to other regions in the UK as well, I'm sure. And we for the reason you mentioned, decided Edinburgh plus because of the local talent there and capability there. So yeah, so it's as you know yourself when you've been, it's a great city, it's a great lifestyle, and I thoroughly recommend it.
Brilliant. So look, let's just touch a little bit on the leadership of the community. You were one of the founding members of our advisory board way back when, and I'm hoping that on the 14th of December you'll be joining us for our alumni and a dinner.
Absolutely.
Which we should probably do in Edinburgh actually, rather than London.
We'd be very welcome.
In light of what we just said. And I've realised there are 36 different senior executives who have been on the journey and we rotate the advisory board members every year. We get fresh blood in, and quite often people hold on to the role. As I know you did, you extended a couple of years, and then sadly we had to say goodbye to you. But what advice would you have for the current advisory board members?
Well, I guess to start with, which I guess probably doesn't need saying, given what you've said, but I'll say it anyway, is just encouraging people across the industry, because you've had a fabulous level of participation, and what makes it strong is that if you like, spread or diversity of participation across many different business types, many different sizes of business, different types of experience, people that have been in the industry a long period of time, people that are just coming into it, and that sort of mix of experience is really critical. So that the rotation that you have, I do believe is a very good idea, and I'm sure you'll continue on with it. I think in terms of the current advisory board or future advisory boards, for me, it's really a lot of the stuff we've just talked about is how do we keep that journey going, and how do we ensure that it is a community-focused view, and there'll always be different, understandably, because people have their own particular needs, requirements, views, opinions in terms of the direction, but that community view of how overall we can come together to come to a common place on what the change is needed, and then being able to drive that forward is really important. And I think, as you were saying, in terms of the new paper you're publishing in January, it's constantly thinking, how can we stretch? Because it'd be very easy. I'm sure there's some easier things that could be done that maintain the status quo, but stretching up and identifying where there is opportunity and doing that research into what's changing and making sure we're plugged into that change into the various communities, really, really critical. So definitely a big proponent of how much more can we stretch, and even now, perhaps even we've got this one underway and starting with the paper coming out in January, maybe the question should be to you and the advisory board, what's next? What's the next one that we're going to come up with or focus on?
Very good, and I will certainly throw down that gauntlet to them and make sure that they're thinking what next. Thank you. That's very good. And a final question for you. Again, I ask all of my guests is, if you had one of your offspring or a new graduate approach you, thinking about following in your footsteps as a serial entrepreneur in this industry, what advice would you give them? Would you say steer clear, never do it?
No, it definitely wouldn't be steer clear. It would be for the reasons that we talked about right at the beginning, in terms of the learning development opportunity from payments and the vertical markets. I'd say payments is a fascinating place to be. I think at the moment it's probably think carefully about where you'd want to be within it, because there's so much going on, and try and take some time. But then, as I also said, jump in and give it a go, and don't be too sort of cautious about landing into something that might not feel quite right at the time, but get in and then adjust and change and move on from there, versus sitting on the sidelines and thinking about it too long. I definitely sort of give it a go and work it out, and don't hesitate.
Would you be open to chatting to somebody about their ideas and getting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very, very open to do that.
Wonderful, thank you. My word, I feel you and I could go on chatting all day, but I know that the audience only has a limited time frame. I really appreciate your openness and candor. Thank you for your support for the community. So on behalf of the whole of the Emerging Payments Association, our board, our advisors, my staff, and our 150 plus members and their thousands of team members, Myles Stephenson, a passionate payments person, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tony.